Okay, guys, what the heck is up with Randy Feenstra and his vote against defunding the National Endowment for Democracy? Hey, guys, Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. A lot of guys are asking us what our opinion is right now on the gubernatorial primary between Randy Feenstra, Adam Steen, Eddie Andrews, and Brad Sherman. And we're going to break down all that we know about their views in the Second Amendment, their votes on your gun rights in future videos. But at the end of the day, this race, like all races, comes down to trust, right? Who can we trust to actually keep their campaign promises to us as gun owners? Well, one of the best ways to gauge what an incumbent politician might do in the future is look at what he's done in the past. How has he used the power he's already been given? And so while this video is about Randy Feenstra's vote to maintain funding for this radical leftist NGO, the National Endowment for Democracy, this matters to gun owners because it gives us a look into how Randy Feenstra thinks, who his friends are, and how he might act as our next governor. So I'm going to give you a story of what happened just last week in Congress in the fight to defund NED, this National Endowment for Democracy. It sounds great, right? After all, who's opposed to spreading democracy around the globe, right? This was begun by Ronald Reagan in 1983 to combat communism. That was the idea that Reagan had back in the 80s. And initially, NED was required to run all their activities by the State Department. And they were also required to give an accounting for all of their money to Congress. These days, and many years ago, all of that ended. And these days, NED is a totally rogue leftist ops center pushing the left's agenda around the globe. And again, don't forget, this is government funded. Just last year, Congress gave NED over $300 million a year, and then poof, it simply disappears. There's a lot we don't know about NED, and there's a reason for it. NED has stopped telling Congress what they do with our money. NED has refused to disclose grant recipients since 2021. They refuse to produce a reporting of where the money actually goes since 2017. So there's a lot of things that we don't know because they simply will not tell Congress how they use our money. But it's very clear that NED is a leftist attack center. Here's a couple of things that we do know. NED gave grant money in 2020 and again in 2022 to groups that sought to censor conservative 501c4s and the Trump campaign in the 2020 election cycle. NED gave over $500,000 to the Global Disinformation Index a couple of years ago, a British organization that maintains an online risk of risky online news outlets in an attempt to silence or squash those entities. You want to guess who is listed off as the risky online news center? Yeah, the New York Post, One America News, The Federalist, Newsmax. Not exactly hardcore right-wing groups, but basically anybody one step right of center is listed off as risky, and NED is giving money to organizations trying to squelch them. And as we heard in Congress last week, NED is well known for trying to silence populist movements all over the globe. Internally, we know some things about NED as well. NED is staffed almost 100% by Democrats. 90% of NED employees' donations to candidates at election time go to Democrat candidates. That's public record. And all of this, the refusal to give a reporting of their money, their hostile actions against conservative news outlets, their efforts to squelch populist movements, and their obviously far left leadership is why Trump tried to defund them a year ago, February of 2025, as part of the Doge cuts. Trump defunded them. But of course, the federal courts came back and they intervened and said Trump could not do that because Congress already gave NED the money for that fiscal year. So fast forward to last week, we're finally at the stage where Congress can now properly defund this rogue NGO. So what happens? Well, Eli Crane from Arizona, he's one of the best we have right now in Congress, a member of the House Freedom Caucus. He runs an amendment on H.R. 7006. This is a major government spending bill for fiscal 2026. And the amendment would strip NED of all of its funding, just straight up gut the entire thing. Now, it should be easy, right? The GOP controls the House, right? I mean, yes and no. I mean, we all know how this works, right? We have numerical control, but we have so many backstabbing rhinos who side of the Democrats. We really don't have the votes that we need, apparently, to get big things done. So in this amendment, when it got to the floor, The Democrats do what they always do. They stand together, they vote as a block, and they're unified. So 100% of the Democratic conference, 210 votes, all voted no. Takes 218, though, to pass or defeat a bill or an amendment. And so they weren't quite there. And then 127 Republicans voted the right way to defund Ned. And that left 85 backstabbing Republican traitors who crossed over party lines, stood with the Democrats, and voted against the amendment, which then failed 291 to 127. Randy Feenstra was one of the 85 rhinos who crossed over party lines, stood with the Democrats, stood against President Trump, and voted to maintain funding for this rogue NGO. It's pretty enraging. You want to know some of the conservative names that voted the right way? The folks that Randy stood against? Well, I'll give you a couple names. You'll know some of these people for sure. Chip Roy, one of the best out of Texas, phenomenal guy. Scott Perry, Freedom Caucus guy from Pennsylvania. Eli Crane, who actually filed the amendment, a former Navy SEAL from Arizona. Andy Biggs, also from Arizona. Eric Burleson from Missouri. He's one of the best, if not the most pro-gun member of Congress we have right now. Jim Jordan. I mean, Randy Feenstra votes against Jim Jordan. Mary Miller from Illinois. Paul Gosar from Arizona. Lauren Boebert, Colorado. Ogles from Tennessee. Luna from Florida. The list goes on and on and on. Heck, we even had our own Marionette Miller Meeks, far from being a conservative. MMM voted the right way on this amendment. 127 Republicans vote the right way on this amendment, but not Randy Feenstra. Why not? Why not? That's the question you have to ask Randy if you see him at a forum or at an event. Why would you not vote to defund this rogue NGO, which Trump himself has asked to be defunded? Because this is not a good look. And as sure as heck does not give us as gun owners confidence on how Randy would operate as our future governor. Randy won't co-sponsor the bill in Congress to abolish the ATF. He won't co-sponsor the bill to repeal the National Firearms Act. He voted to give the freaking FBI under Joe Biden's control $500 million for a new HQ. He votes to extend FISA warrants, which were used on Trump's team, used against Trump's team, try and stop him in the elections. And he votes to give $95 billion of our dollars to Ukraine. Where does this end? I mean, when will Randy fight for conservatives, for Iowans, for gun owners? Because none of this is good. None of this gives us confidence in who Randy is. I don't know when he's going to stand up. You're going to have to ask him this question. But this should tell you a lot about who Randy is and his willingness to confront the swamp. He simply will not do it. When Congress had the chance to defund a very clear, very obvious radical left-wing NGO, which Trump wanted gone, Feenstra voted no. And that's the question we have to ask. If you won't fight on this, what will you fight for? Because trust is earned in the Iowa primaries. And right now, Randy Feenstra hasn't earned much. Guys, share our video online. Help us get the word out. Get more involved in the fight today at joinigo.com or iowagunowners.org.